Started. If you haven't had a chance yet to scan that QR code and check in, please make sure that you do. If the QR code is giving you trouble, feel free to just drop your UCSC email in the chat here. And that's another way that we can get you all checked in for this interview workshop. So take a moment, scan that QR code, or if the QR code's not working for you, just pop your UCSC email in the chat and I can manually enter you afterwards. So last chance, scan the QR code so you can check in, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into things here. We got one or two last people coming in the waiting room, but I really want us to get started. So welcome, everyone. If we have not met before, my name is Holly Hooksema. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a career engagement specialist focusing on the arts division and the humanities division in the career success department at UCSC. And I'm co-hosting this event with someone who is going to introduce themselves right now.
Hi, all. My name is Meredith Pellring. I am the Humanities Career Engagement Specialist, and I work just in the Humanities Division, but alongside Holly and other colleagues in Career Success. And we are delighted today to introduce you to Tammy Tolgo.
Hello. Wonderful. We're gonna take the slide off the screen. We're gonna dive in and get started. Again, students, if you didn't have a chance to check in using that QR code, please go ahead, drop your UCSC email in the chat, and I can enter things for you manually afterwards. Tammy, welcome. We are so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm so envious of your backdrop. I mentioned before that we have at Amazon, we have our own proprietary system that we use, and so we do not use Zoom. But I miss all of the fun bells and whistles that come along with it. So apologies for the blank white wall that you are seeing in my backdrop, but
No
I'll
worries.
try to make it worth your while.
That's great. I think all of us are so used to, the virtual world now. We get it. Like sometimes you can have the fancy background and sometimes it's your room and that's great. At least you're not somewhere crowded or noisy or anything like that. Tammy, thank you for making the time today. We appreciate it. I think I can speak for all the students who are attending here that we're just grateful for you being willing to share a little bit about your journey. And everyone who's attending, I invite you to really just, close whatever else you're doing and really be fully present. Like, let's listen, let's learn, let's ask questions. Just to set a few expectations with everyone, I'm going to be facilitating this job talk, which means I'll be asking Tammy questions and Tammy will be responding. You are more than welcome to drop questions in the chat, and myself and Meredith will do our best to attend to them. I do want to be, relatively mindful of timing and making sure Tammy can get through all the questions that we have to ask her. Keep in mind, everyone, there will be kind of an open Q&A at the end. So if your question doesn't get answered in this first part, we're just going to have just a kind of a free-for-all Q&A at the end. And of course, if for some reason you have a question later on that doesn't get answered, you are welcome to contact myself or Meredith, and we can make sure to get your question to Tammy and get back to you on that. While myself and Tammy are having dialogue, I would ask that everybody mostly keeps themselves on mute, just so that we don't hear the background noise and whatever's going on wherever you are. But again, if you want to engage, feel free to drop things in the chat. And if we can't address them that moment, we'll save them for the end. Any questions from anyone about what we're diving into or how it's going to go? Fantastic. All right. Well, Tammy, let's get started. The first question, we're going to start just broadly. Give us a little bit of an idea of your career trajectory. How would you describe after college, what'd you start doing, and where are you now?
Oh gosh, the career trajectory. It's so funny because I had been thinking about this and I think what a winding journey. When I think about my career, I really think it began at a young age. I've worked for a very long time and I really enjoyed the exposure that it gave me. I also really appreciated the financial independence that it gave me. And so I carried on with that journey. And after I graduated from UC Santa Cruz, go Slugs, I worked for the university for several years and in academia, running special programs, college, or excuse me, Office of Admissions as well. And then I finished my journey in academics by running an MBA program at California State University, Northridge, which is where I did obtain my MBA. So had such a great experience in the program. They needed someone to run the program. And so that's what I did once I graduated. And that kind of capped off my experience there. In my journey of working at the university, I came across an alumnus from Cal State Northridge who turned me on to the idea of talent acquisition. And that's what I've been doing for 20 years now, ever since that moment. So it was a really interesting moment. It was something I had never really thought of. But of course, he pointed out the work that I was doing, the transferable skills that I had gained, and what a great opportunity it would be if I wanted to make that career change. And so that's what I did, and I've worked for several different organizations since then. So again, quite the journey over the last 30-ish years, I would say.
Thank you for sharing that. I love hearing these types of stories because it's so fascinating to connect the dots, kind of from where we started to where we went and back and forth. And it's not always linear, there's not always sometimes there is, you have a major and you go straight into that and you just stay in that forever. But sometimes the journey is a bit more non-linear, and that I mean it sounds a bit like yours. You're using the phrase talent acquisition. Define that for us, and then tell us a little bit more. You touched on it just now, but tell us a little bit more about what drew you to talent acquisition. Obviously, the gentleman you were mentioning, he kind of helped prep you that this would be a great fit for you. But internally for you, what led you to believing that, yeah, this actually is a good fit for me? So what is it, and why is it a good fit for you?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think, when I think of talent acquisition or TA, which I will probably, because I've been doing it for so long, I am going to say TA a lot. So I'll warn you in advance. But talent acquisition, AKA recruiting, which I think most folks are familiar with, but maybe if you haven't had engagement in it, maybe may not understand it as well. When I look at talent acquisition or recruiting, I think about fueling organizations with the talent that enables them to grow. And so that's how I look at what is TA. And that can come in lots of different forms. It could be temporary support, it could be what we consider like a full time support. It's at the senior ranks, it's helping with org design. It's so many different things, but it's basically people power and enabling that people power. Um, I think I really enjoy connecting with individuals and helping them with their career trajectory. So the things that they're looking for, um, the milestones along the way that will help them to reach those goals. Because it isn't always like this is my goal to get here and then you just boom get there. It oftentimes is steps along the way, and so I really enjoy that component. But then I also have the opportunity to use my MBA, my grad degree, and think about it from a business strategy perspective. So, as an example, I have one of the businesses that I support today that is embarking on this transformation within their organization. It's a great opportunity to dig in and talk about how they build that organization, how we then facilitate it, what does the design need to look like, what levels are we hiring, how do we do that in stages, um, and how does it all kind of merge together? So I get that great opportunity of engaging with people and helping them with their career paths, but also helping businesses or organizations fulfill their delivery or their goals, and merging those two things together is really exciting.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I love, for myself, working in career success and helping people with their careers. I really resonate with the joy of that,
Mhm.
walking alongside folks and helping them figure out where do they want to get? Could that fit within a given company? How do we get you there? How do we grow you in that? There's a real genuine joy like in walking alongside people. I want to pivot a tiny bit. Tell us, because this is all your post college. You were a humanities student here at UCSC. What was your major?
Feminist studies. It was women's studies at the time, but it's feminist studies now.
Fantastic. I love that. And so, obviously there's not necessarily a clear line, from that to talent acquisition. And yet you've done it. And that's one of the goals for us right now is, how can the humanities majors that are on this call evaluate the skills that they are gaining right now as a humanities major and the unique items from being a humanities major, and how does that translate? You even mentioned transferable skills a little bit ago, talking about when you were shifting into talent acquisition. So I guess my question is, how has your humanities degree and skills really served you in your career?
Mm. When I think about the humanities, humanities is all about human culture, human experience, and what a fantastic foundation, I think, frankly, for anything. So that's how I look at the humanities, because I was thinking about this component and how did humanities help me? And in my mind, I thought, well, how didn't it? Right? So I know. I think, particularly in talent acquisition, where you're interfacing with humans all day, whether that is someone that is a candidate potentially for a job that we have, or whether I'm interfacing with business leaders internally in the organization that I support, I think that foundation of working with humans and understanding human culture um, really is what enables success. Um, and then when I look at it from that perspective, I think it's really easy to see how humanities uh, brings value to all areas. So, regardless of what your discipline is or what your job function is, it's that foundational skill that the humanities has taught you that enables you to have that baseline for success, in my mind. I'm obviously a little biased.
Right, absolutely, absolutely, but that's okay because you've lived had the reality of how this humanities degree has benefited you, even though you didn't continue in feminist studies per se, that was your undergrad and you didn't, teach or, write specifically in that niche. I really appreciate what you're bringing out, and I hope everyone else on this call is really hearing that a humanities degree is helping us learn how to interact with other humans, which is the vast majority of jobs out there. There are a few where you're only interacting with machines, but hopefully if one is a humanities major, you're okay with other humans and you're okay with interacting with them. And I love, Tammy, as well, that you're pointing out it's the study of humans and of human culture, which really helps us understand who people are and how they operate and how they got to where they are and what might be going on. And what you were just saying really leads into my next question, which was a two-part question. Number one, it was going to be what strengths are humanities folks bringing in your work, as you hire all sorts of different talent, when you find out someone was a major anywhere in the humanities, what specific strengths, which I think you've kind of spoken to, just that gift for looking at people as real humans and understanding culture. So I guess my second question there is, if anyone on this call as a humanities major was out in the job market, how could they best talk about or highlight their skills as a humanities major, if they're going through an interview process or writing bullet points on their resume? Let's talk about transferable skills. If one is a humanities major, how do we talk about or highlight that in the job search?
Yeah, I think it is so challenging for folks that are early in their careers that are newer grads to think about how you do that in a resume form. And I can relate and I get it. I think for me, what I would say is it's the people skills, the empathy, the understanding. It's what we hope for in our leaders, but it's also what we need in our employees. So when you look at it from that lens, think about ways that you can tap into that or demonstrate that. At Amazon, we have a leadership principle that's called deliver results, and it's one that's near and dear to our hearts. There is nothing that trumps delivery or delivering results, right? That is always going to be the primary thing that has to happen. But if you can find someone who brings empathy, collaboration, and understanding to the workplace, who also delivers results, then that's success. And that is, quite frankly, not an easy thing to do. So if you can find a way to kind of demonstrate those things on your resume in small ways, regardless of what work you've done, whether it's been in a particular course, if it has been in a part time job that you have held, that combines that understanding with the delivery and the results orientation, I think that's where you're going to tap into what a lot of organizations are looking for.
Folks on this call, I hope y'all are taking notes because this is gold. I was a hiring manager. I worked in talent acquisition for years and years and years. And I mean, Tammy, everything you're saying is on point. Like, so folks on this call, if you're looking for a job, you're like, how I have a humanities degree. What am I going to do with that? There are so many areas where someone with a humanities degree is going to be perfect because you can understand humans, you understand culture, and if you can deliver results, you are the unicorn that we want to hire. Like if you can deliver and do it with empathy, with understanding, with compassion, with healthy communication. I mean, this is bread and butter for humanities majors. You're studying people and how they work. So again, I hope everybody on this call is taking notes because in your next interview, these are the things that you want to highlight about yourself. Thank you for that, Tammy. My next question, this goes, they're all in order. So this is kind of building on that. What would your broad advice for humanities majors be as they enter the job market? And I understand that this might be the same advice for any discipline, but tell us, I mean, your talent acquisition is your job. We've got tons of people on this call who are looking at entering the job market. And given the situations in various industries today, I know from my work here on campus with juniors and seniors, people are a little nervous about what are they going to find, so what would your advice be for anyone and or specifically the humanities majors on this call as they enter the job market? What do they need to do? What do they need to know? Whatever you want to share with us, we're all ears.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, I think advice that's applicable to anyone, but particularly folks that are early on in their careers or just starting out, and regardless of what your major has been, I think to me, three things. So building relationships or networking as one. I would say mentorship or sponsorship. They're two different things, but they're related. And then I also think risk taking. It's the best time to take risks within reason. Don't tell your parents. I went to this session, and this woman said I should take all these risks. But within reason, this is the best time to do it because the stakes are lower, if that makes sense, right? And so it's a great opportunity to take some risks and potentially make some mistakes, to fail, get back up, and build from there. So I would say, in terms of networking and building relationships, so important to expand your network, always be meeting new people. You never know what that connection may bring you. And so I think just be open to it, but make a concerted effort to do it. I think, as I mentioned, I worked at Cal State Northridge, was running the MBA program, met an alumnus at a session similar to this that I was hosting because I was running the program. And it's through that connection that sparked this opportunity to shift my career in a different direction. And so that was just simply me being open to it, meeting people, and wanting to have that conversation and build that relationship. He and I are still in touch today, and we've got a great relationship. So I wish that for all of you, and times 10, because you need more than one of those people. You need a lot of those people, and they should have differing views and give you different advice that helps you. And then you take the advice, you synthesize, and then you make your own decisions. But it's those little nuggets of information that I think will help along the way. When
If
I
I may
think,
interject, I
Mhm,
just want
please.
to agree with what you're saying and tell everyone on this call. I was reading a statistic the other day that between 80 and 90% of job offers that are extended come through some sort of connection. That's like 4 out of 5. Only 1 out of 5 job offers comes through like a cold application off of LinkedIn where you didn't know anyone, you just applied. So folks on this call, what Tammy is saying, I just really want to like emphasize it. And it's not about cheesy, weird networking, schmoozing, shaking hands, kissing babies. Like it can be just really good, normal. You're getting to know people. And if anyone on this call wants to know more about that, you can make an appointment with myself or with Meredith, or you can come by the Career Success office and like we'll help you with like, how do I do this networking thing? I know it's important, but Tammy, the example you gave is so perfect. You were chatting with someone at an event and all of a sudden that led to a job opportunity, and the more we can network, the better it can be. So take us to the second thing you said there's a difference between mentoring and sponsorship, and I was really curious, what do you mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, we'll use the terms a little bit um, what is it, inextricably? No, interchangeably. Um, so mentorship is the traditional term that we're all familiar with, right? And I would also say, as I said about building your network and having those people that I mentioned, who can give you those nuggets of advice, those can be mentors too. I would also think about broadening your view on what it means, to have a mentor and the type of mentor that you can have. I think early in my career, I thought about a mentor uh, as someone who had the thing that I wanted, right? They have the job that I want, they have the degree that I want, they have that thing, and I want to be like them. And that doesn't have to be the case. It can just be simply someone who has made some good decisions, someone who you believe that you can learn from. Ideally, there's some connectivity with what you want from a career perspective, but it just has to be some connectivity, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to follow along in their path. It simply means that you're learning from them. That's the whole act of them mentoring you. And again, not one singular mentor, but many if you have that opportunity. And as folks grow their career, you get more exposure to different people and you can start to add more mentors to your network. Um, the term sponsorship is an interesting one. It's usually a term that is most closely aligned to folks that come from underrepresented categories. And it is really the distinction is that it's essentially a view or a presence in a room, where someone is advocating for you in a room that you're not in. So it's the idea that someone has you at the forefront of their mind and they're actually going into meetings and events and they're thinking about how these connections that they're building or promotion opportunities, those things as they come through and they're sitting at that table, they have you in mind and they advocate on your behalf.
I really appreciate you delineating the difference between those two, because I think most people are familiar with the concept of mentoring, and sponsorship. It sounds like is a bit more proactive, where mentoring like is great, and it's walking alongside you and helping you. And I really appreciate that you teased out the mentor. Your mentor doesn't even have to be someone who's in the same industry that you want to go into. They can simply be mentoring you on networking skills, on how to talk about yourself, on how to grow as a professional. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's, in the specific job you want. And I love that you're pointing out sponsorship. And this question is not on my list, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. How would you encourage folks to go about finding a mentor or a sponsor? They may be listening and being like, that sounds great, but like, what do I do? How do I do this? Is it a cold ask? Is it something that happens organically? Is it sometimes one or sometimes the other?
I think it's both. So it's sometimes one and sometimes the other. And I've had people who've come up to me and said, will you mentor me? And I will be honest with you, it depends on my bandwidth. And I've oftentimes said no, but it's a no, but what about this person? Or what about this instead? And so I always try to provide some level of alternative, right? So I would just encourage those that are on the call today and those that will potentially watch it later, don't be so worried about this fear of rejection. It doesn't hurt to ask. And if there is a no, it's not a fit at this time, or I don't have the bandwidth at this time. If that person doesn't offer an alternative to you, then I would at least don't put all the pressure on them, but I would at least say, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for your candor, because frankly, it's no good to you to have a mentor that doesn't actually have time for you anyway. That's not valuable. So it's actually better that they said no. But you may want to say, at the end of that conversation, just I appreciate it. I understand. I appreciate your consideration. If there's anyone else that you can think of that you think could be a great mentor for me, or that I should simply just know and be connected with and build a relationship with, I would always welcome that. And then that way, I think you take a little bit of the pressure off them to just immediately produce a replacement. And I think that that'll go well. I've never seen that go wrong, knock wood. But I think that is a great way to kind of position things.
I love that, and that I mean, that's proactive, on the person who is asking, that's really proactive and yet understanding and sensitive on their part. The last thing you had mentioned in terms of advice, and then we'll skip to our last question. You had said risk taking. You would really encourage people, and you kind of couch it as, of course, like reasonable risks. But what types of risks are you talking about? Give us the 2 minute on if you said risk taking is important. What are we talking? Skydiving? What are we talking about here? What types of risks?
Well, you could skydive. If you wanted to skydive, you could totally skydive. I'm thinking about, and maybe this is a little bit of projection, right? But on the paths not taken. And I think so much pressure accumulates when you are graduating or have just graduated. There's all these pressures to do and to be and to accomplish. And so I would just say, within reason, take it all in and make good choices. And that can be some choices that are long shots. It's okay to have long shots as long as the important thing is that you know it's a long shot, right? So you got to be honest with yourself and you have to say, I think this is a long shot, but this could really pay off. And the example that I go back to is the one where I met another MBA alumnus, and he had this wild idea: come work for me. You're going to be great. I can see you in talent acquisition. I had a great job. I didn't need to leave, but I wasn't fulfilled. It wasn't what I wanted at that moment. It wasn't what I needed at that moment. And it also wasn't going to take my career where I wanted it to go, but it was fine. And I was settled and it was very secure. And so when I say take risks, I would give you that as an example. I went to work for anybody who knows what a recruiting agency is like. I went from a very steady, stable job with amazing benefits. And I shifted into a role that was 100% commission, which means there is actually no payout. There's a draw against the house for anybody who is a betting person. I am not. But that's essentially how it works. So you get payment, but it is payment against an account. You owe that money back. So you actually have to be successful and deliver, bring in revenue for the company for you to actually pay off that debt and to get paid. I had a mortgage, but I decided to bet on myself. And so I decided, you know what? It's worth taking the risk. I have enough money that I can cover my mortgage should I fail at this. And there's no better time than to do it now because it's not going to be easier in 5 years when I'm 5 years older and, all of the things of life, right? So I decided this is a calculated risk. Here's the duration that I'm a business person. So here's the duration that I'm going to give it. This is what my financial situation is. Here are the targets that I need to hit in order to be successful. And then this is when I'm going to call it quits if this wasn't the right path. That's an example of a big, big risk. A lot of other people wouldn't have taken it. And it paid off and it ended up being a great thing. But it would also be okay if I had failed because then I would have learned. And so that would have been okay too. So I hope that's helpful in kind of painting a picture.
I love that. I mean, that's like a textbook, example of a risk basically being something that you assess. You think through all the various pros and cons, and if I fail, do I, am I on the streets and destitute, or is it like, no, I have a few safety nets, really assessing the various pros and cons of it. But one of the things I heard was taking risks that are going to get you closer, or that have the potential to get you closer to your long-term goals. You probably knew, well, this is a just fine job, but I'd like to be satisfied long term. That sounds great too. So how can I take a risk that as I assess, and think through my long-term goals, how can I take some risks that will edge me closer to those goals? Fantastic. I could keep talking to you forever, but I wanna mind our time. We wanna get to the Q&A. The last question that we have written down, and then we'll get to just kind of audience Q&A, is what do you think, especially in your role as hiring and talent acquisition, what do you think some common gaps or weaknesses of humanities majors as they enter the job market might be, and how would you encourage students to address those proactively, either with developing themselves before they get into the job market or addressing those things, in an interview or on a resume?
Well, first of all, the in the background, if you can hear that, is my foster dog who is kind of grumbling and having his own moment. So that's
Cannot
not
hear. You're
there.
safe.
Okay, good. I'm not the one grumbling. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew. So I think if I think about the most common gaps, it's not a CS or a computer science major, right? So it's not sort of a given, like we need a computer science major. They know the basics of computer science. Okay, boom, they're immediately qualified because they were able to obtain that degree. So it's different in that there has to be some sort of a tangible result or delivery in some kind of metric that is demonstrated, right? So it can be a paper that you wrote. It can be delivering on like what I would call is like a tight turn and your ability to do so in some sort of a situation that demonstrates that you deliver results, because that's what it comes back to and that's what people are looking for. Um, I think demonstrated skills, right? So if I'm looking at someone's resume or having a conversation with them and they're early in their career, I want to know that they have learning agility, right? So because you are early in your career and there is a lot more to learn, and you're not expected to know all of that today, but I want to know if I'm going to hire for my team, do you have the learning agility that over time, if I say, hey, can you work on this, or I introduce you to something new, that you have the capability of taking in that information and being able to deliver what ultimately needs to be delivered with that info in mind. And so I think about ways that you can try and capture that. So if there are things that you've done while you've been in undergrad, if there are things that you've demonstrated in a job that you've had, and there's a way that you can show others what you have delivered, what your skills are, um, your learning agility. I think those are things that people are going to really, uh, it's really going to resonate with them.
That is Sorry, that is great. Thank you. That, I
Mhm.
mean, and that again hits a lot of that transferable skill type thing. Hey, here's what I did in undergrad, and here's how it was awesome. The skills I demonstrated, the deliverables, that I was able to show up for, and here's how that might translate into X, job that I'm applying for, interviewing for, or what have you. Tammy, this is great. I'm being a career successful time. I feel like I could just, talk to you for days and days and days. And I want to open it up to other folks on the call right now. So anyone who's here, if you've got a question, you can drop it in the chat. You can use the little raise hand feature and we'll just call on you. What we have, I mean, an amazing opportunity for the next 10 minutes to pick the brain of someone who is a UCSC alumni, was a humanities major, is now in a pretty significant job. I mean, talent acquisition with Amazon, IMDb, et cetera, et cetera. What might you, I mean, people on this call, you never get this kind of opportunity with somebody. You got 10 minutes with someone. So what would you want to ask? What would you want to hear from Tammy at this point? And no pressure if you're like, my brain is full. She just gave us so much, like like I'm all done. That's fine too. But I want to open the floor up. Drop something in the chat or raise your hand if you've got a question or you want to hear something from Tammy.
The pressure to speak
I
up.
know, right? All right, we've got one in the chat. Kyle asked, when you summarize skills from past experiences, what do you choose to emphasize and what do you choose to leave out? Great question.
When you summarize skills from past experiences, um, you choose to emphasize. I mean, are there any skills that you would leave out? I think, yeah,
It's a great question. I think
yeah,
sometimes maybe it's tailored to the job itself? You know, I mean, could you speak to
Mhm.
that?
Sure, sure. I think, if there is a job posting that you are replying to or submitting for directly, certainly take the opportunity to tailor just a little bit. Um, think about what uh, the basic qualifications are. They're listed, and think about how one, are those represented in your resume? Could someone look at that job posting or job description, look at your resume and immediately go, yes, of course? And if those things are not correct or not aligned, then think about are there ways that you can amplify certain things on your resume so that they are more aligned? And the other alternative is they're not aligned, right? And so that could just be a matter of you looking at something as a stretch opportunity, which is totally fine. Or possibly you need to look at those two things and go, okay, wait, these two things are not aligned, right? But I think there's always an opportunity to weave in little bits of information. I tend to over edit. So if there's anyone like me, you will empathize that I will read something and I'll go, uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. But the reality is when you look at the side by side, there needs to be some matching. So I would also say simply because you read something and it resonates with you, it doesn't mean that your resume uh, would necessarily say that. And so I would be a little vocally self-critical, take a step back, look at those two things side by side, and then figure out, are there things that I really need to amplify a little bit more so that I can hit the mark? You can also search online. There's so much information that's available online. So you can even say, for XYZ job, what are the four most important skills or six most important skills? And boom, you're going to get a list, right? And that information is extracted from all of this information that is out there. So there's got to be some faith in it. And then I would just look at that and think about, okay, are there bits and pieces that you need to weave?
I completely agree with that, and I'm gonna put in the tiniest plug. I'm gonna drop a link in the
Yeah.
chat here. Students who are listening, if you want help with resume and like, how do I highlight the skills? What do I do? Go to our career success website. I just dropped it in the chat there. We've got an entire page on resumes. We've got worksheets for how you can tailor your resume and how do you write bullet points. You can email a resume or cover letter into us and we'll just review it, email you back with some feedback. You can drop in here 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday on campus. We've got Zoom hours. I mean, loads of options. So everything Tammy's talking about, if you're listening and you're like, cool, but how do I do that? Like, how do I act? Come to Career Success. It's free. Your tuition is already paying for it. So come use these and we will help you like step by step with that type of stuff. Somebody else, other questions? I know we've only got a few minutes left, but any other things that folks want to ask Tammy while she's here? Yes, Kyle, go for it. Unmute yourself.
Okay. I'll just say that I'll just talk instead of writing this out because
Yeah.
I think it requires a little bit more. So hello, Tammy. You've been amazing so far. So thank you so much for answering this question. Um, so right now I'm really trying to resume build right now, and to me that is sort of working in different jobs that are sort of under the same umbrella, but that require different skills. And so to acquire those skills and to display for any future job that I want to be my career. Is there ever a point where there is too much resume building, and then also can a resume ever be too long?
Yes, and yes. And it's such a great question. I'm like, yeah. Oh, we see this so often. Well, one, it depends on it depends on the region where you're applying. So I will say that because resumes look different outside of the United States. In particular, typically you'll see this in Europe and possibly the Middle East, where it reads more like a CV or a curriculum vitae, which is typically what you use in academia, and it is a lot more detailed. In general, most organizations, again, unless it is outside of the United States, in which case, I would do a little bit of Google search and have some level of understanding of what is the norm in other areas. But if you're talking about the United States or even North America, it's standard that it would be one page. And in fact, I think every time I kind of bleed into page two, I take a cold hard look at my resume and I ask myself if I really should be bleeding into page two. Is there enough meaningful content here at this point in my career that all of this needs to be here to convey what I need it to convey? And I do my best to try and keep it to one page. So I would say, in general, under 10 years post baccalaureate work experience, you want to be under one page, unless, again, it's a different region or it's meant to be more of a CV style. If you work in academia, you're going to need more content than that. It tends to be a lot more detailed. But if you're looking at any other organization, that's likely not the case. Is that helpful?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And in that case, as you're trying to whittle it down, and I know Holly said the Career Center is there to support, I would just seed this with you that it's not meant to tell us everything. It's meant to tell us the most important things that pertain to the role that you are that way. And you think about what are the most important things. There's some foundational stuff, and there's probably some highlight content, but it's not everything. So not everything has to be listed and described.
Tammy,
Cool.
thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Kyle, thank you for that question. That I 100% resonate with Tammy's answer as someone who does, resume coaching all day, every day. This is our link in the chat here to our resume page, and anyone who wants resources, come talk to us. We would love to work with you. Richard, go ahead, ask your question.
Hello. Sorry if there's like background noise. I'm in the library right now, but thank you so much for all the advice you've given us so far, Tammy. I wanted to see if you could expand a little more in regards to uh, reaching out to like mentors and reaching out to people on LinkedIn. Um, with my experience, I've had a lot of rejections from cold applying. So obviously, like I think that's like a key sign for me to understand how much like a reference can add to your application. But with that, reaching out to like recruiters on LinkedIn and even just like alumni, it's been a little difficult because not everyone like, reaches back or even like connects with you if you send them like a note when you connect with them. So I was wondering if you had any advice in regards to other forms of communicating with professionals who are currently working at places that I would be interested in working at.
Yeah, that's a great question. In some ways, I really, really envy the time that we're in and the opportunity that technology provides. In other ways, having been someone who, graduated back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, we didn't have that opportunity, right? And so, a couple things I would say, we were talking about it earlier about building your network and building relationships and the importance of doing so. And so much is online right now. And again, that's amazing. But I also feel like post COVID, having been in this room for a long time, your skills of interacting with humans starts to wither. And so I would say when you have opportunities to engage that skill, do it because that'll help to kind of keep it fresh. So not your question, but I just wanted to say that as I was thinking back on the differences between when I graduated and now, in terms of reaching out, I would say be persistent. And I will admit to you that I don't respond to so much of the traffic that comes through on LinkedIn just because I don't have time. And then I always feel so bad. And then I try to go back to it when I'm able and try and sort of like get through a backlog of all the people that have reached out to me, questions, connections, you name it. So it isn't necessarily, it's not because we don't care. But I would stay persistent in doing so, and also think about what you're trying to achieve, um, and sort of in stages, right? My mind always works in stages. So, like, what's the end goal? But then, are there also like maybe baby steps or milestones along the way? Where are those people today? And are there places where you'll get exposure to more of that? And then think about that. Is it like a chat room? Is it a particular online platform? Is it an in person network? Do they all go to this particular coffee shop or do they all play, volleyball here? So think about those bits too and think about, all right, how do I organically get a little bit more exposure to that community that might be able to help support me, right? It takes a long time to build, it's not immediate, but I think it's a really valuable thing to start kind of investing your time in. I hope that's helpful. I don't have sort of like a golden nugget of information here, but hopefully there was something there that was helpful.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Tammy, thank you for that. I once heard a mentor of mine once said, put yourself around the people you want to become like. And I think that's true both in our personal lives and in our professional lives. So what you're saying, where the people who are in the industries I want to be in, who are doing the jobs I want to do, where, and we don't want to be stalkers. And at the same time, is there a way I can put myself around the people that I want to become like, and what would that look like? How could I do that, I'm going to drop another resource in the chat just because I am all about resources for students. Richard had mentioned connecting on LinkedIn with alumni. I have a whole document here that I dropped in the chat. The students, if you're listening, this walks you through how to use our UCSC LinkedIn alumni page to ask for an informational interview with someone that might have been in the same major as you, or might be doing a job that you're interested in. And Tammy made such a great point. You don't always hear back from everybody, and it's not because you're bad or they don't like you. It's just, people are busy. But the cool thing is on LinkedIn, you get 5 free connect messages every month. And if you're doing your due diligence and just being disciplined, let's go, that's like 1 a week. That takes you what, 3 minutes to craft this. And on that doc I linked, there's example questions and how do you say it without being cheesy and all that. I guarantee you, if you reach out really consistently, you will get a couple of people that respond and are like, sure, I'll give you 15 minutes on Zoom, to talk about careers and trajectory. So don't lose heart, students. Networking is important. I mean, Tammy was saying that was her very first most important piece of advice, networking, putting yourself around people. I want to honor our time. I know people have classes and meetings, and all sorts of other things. So we'll make this the official end of this time. And I'll say, I'm going to put my email address in the chat here. Meredith, maybe if you want to put yours in as well. If anyone has further questions for Tammy or just questions about this type of thing in general, you can message myself or Meredith. We would love to get back to you. I put a link in the chat for coaching. We have peer coach drop-in hours here at Career Success, or you can make an appointment with someone like myself or Meredith if you want one-on-one. So folks that are here, just know we've got tons of resources for you. Tammy, I want to say thank you. I feel like I would just love to go get coffee with you and just, keep chatting for hours and hours. Thank you for making the time and just for offering thoughts and perspectives and expertise. I know that every student on this call, and even myself as an adult, are benefiting from what you offered. So thank you.
It is my absolute pleasure. I know that when you come to a session like this, it's not always all applicable to everyone. It never can be, but my goal is that everyone walked away with something. So at least 1 or 2 little nuggets of information that will actually bring meaning and have some impact to what it is you're trying to achieve. And I just want to tell all the students, you two are fantastic, and they are very, very lucky to have you. The amount of engagement and follow up and organization around putting this together really could have not been better. So, how lucky they are to have people like you in their corner and supporting them in their journey out in the wild. So, I just wanted to say that and thank you both so much.
Thank you again. Students, thank you for being here. Thank you for attending again. If you did not get to scan that QR code at the beginning, will you please just drop your email address in the chat so that I can log that you attended? And outside of that, students, we're going to do another one of these next quarter. So watch for who the guest is going to be next quarter. We'll keep doing these campus to career job talks. We've got workshops set up. Meredith and I are doing an interview skills workshop next quarter in April. So please keep your eyes on all the humanities promotions you'll see, because we're going to keep driving these things forward for you. Students, you're welcome to log off. Tammy and Meredith, if you'd be willing to just stick around just for a moment, that would be fantastic. Students, go. Have a great day. Get a hold of us if you need anything.
Thank you.